what do you see in this Blue Jay team that you like or don't like?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't think the fact that they rolled against the Angels tells you anything about this season. But the value obviously of the next 30 games and probably the last 40 games of this season is just basically to see what they have in terms of young players. Like you have to ultimately make a decision as to like, is Spencer Horwitz part of your future? Is Ernie Clement part of your future? Is Joey Lopervito part of your future? Is Addison Barger part of the future? That's basically what I think you can get out of this season is some kind of data on whether any of these young players are, part of your roster construction heading forward. And I think, and I'm sure both of you guys agree with me, one of the tricky things on all this stuff is it's hard to evaluate a player who's like obviously good enough to be in the majors and better than AAA, but not a star in the major leagues. Like that's just tricky. Just like
Right.
like the Kevin Bigios of the world. It's kind of like just hard to figure out, what are they and how many of them can you keep. I will say again, just on like sort of the eye test for me, it feels like Ernie Clement is a major league player, like as a utility type of player. Like I Spencer Horwitz, the same thing. Lopervito was a pretty good prospect in the Astros system, so I think he'll be around. Barger's obviously had a couple days, but he's been up already, so sort of hard to tell. So I think if you're the Blue Jays, like the sort of twofold. One, you're gaining information about all these guys, and two, in terms of the business end of it, if they can play exciting baseball, which usually a lot of young guys can, maybe you continue to get 30,000 or something like that coming to the ballpark. But yeah, I mean, first of all, Bob, the Angels are a terrible team, and secondly, it doesn't matter. It has really no meaning long term.
Well, they're only about 3 or 4 games back of Tampa Bay now.
Is that
Would
right?
catching Tampa Bay be a significant
I don't.
achievement?
I mean, to me at this point of the season, if you want to look at it like in terms of what would be an achievement, I think 500 would be an achievement just given at certain points they were like whatever 12, 13, 14 games below. I think they're now 6 or 5. I have to look at the
Yeah,
standing.
about that.
Yeah, that would mean
They're five. They're five right now,
five.
Richard.
Okay. So, if they won 81, 82 games, given where they were, that would be an achievement. I mean, you can make the argument that like at this point, given it doesn't mean anything, maybe you'd rather them lose more games to get a higher place in the MLB draft, although not much difference between, 12 and 17 or something like that. Again, I think it's just more about like you have to sort of make decisions on, you know, who can ultimately be on the roster in 2025. But they even beyond like the evaluation of these young guys, they have the real decision to make in terms of what are they going to do with Vladdy and Bo, and like what's the
Yeah.
commitment going to be or not going to be, and then make the decision. I will say, it's so funny. Like I remember talking about this on air at Sportsnet, like whatever 4 years ago. Like the whole notion of Vladdy, like perhaps going back to third base, seems insane to me. I mean, you've invested so
Why?
much because I understand that I know you've said this, Bob, and I get it. It's much easier to find a first baseman anywhere who can for power. I understand.
Exactly.
And so if you have a guy at third who's really good, it makes your team better. But you invested so much in this guy. He became an excellent fielder, I think, at first base. So why would you then change all of that up, throw him back to third, where it becomes a significant gamble if he could be forget about
Because you had
defender, an
nobody at
average
third.
defender.
You had
Well,
nobody
because you
who could
need
play
because
third.
and you
I
need
understand
another
that.
and you need another bat. You
Right.
need another bat.
Well, then find why not go out in free agency and try to find a third baseman?
Well, maybe they will.
Yeah. I before we get stuck on the Vladdy conversation, because it's like all roads lead to Rome, all roads lead to Vladdy.
Yeah.
I think the bigger decision and the biggest question mark is Bowden Francis real or not?
Yeah,
Does
that's
does
you know
he
that
solve does he solve some of your starting pitching problems?
it's a great question. That's one thing when I was talking about in terms of the evaluation, like the last 4 months of the season, 3 months of the season has been maybe he's the most important evaluation of all because if he's a
Right.
legitimate starting pitcher, well, that changes fundamentally everything. If you then bring back Gaussman, Gossman, Bassett, Barrios, and if Bowden Francis is a legit number 4, well, that you're in a much better place than you might have thought you would have been. I don't expect Manoah to be back next year, or certainly
Don't forget about re-signing Kikuchi.
Yeah,
That's a real possibility.
I don't think that's going to happen, because I think he's going to be pitching well enough where he's going to get a bigger deal than the Blue Jays will give him. But they need pitching. Clearly, they're going to need another starter regardless. But yeah, this guy's he's looked incredible. Again, the hard thing to evaluate is how much of this is real, because he's not pitching in any kind of pressure situations, right? I mean,
Right.
he's pitching for a job. I get that. But he's not pitching in any kind of pressure situations in terms of must wins. So it's really a hard evaluation, but he's been great. I mean, he really, like, in terms of effectiveness, he's been there
Lately he's
for a
been
month.
great. But remember, earlier in the year, he was terrible.
I agree. I'm not buying it long term, honestly. I hope I'm
Yeah.
but
Me
I
neither.